am that girl whose first cry cost my mother her last breath, whose father drowned his pain in bottles and forgot I existed, whose auntie chained me with chores and called it love, whose suitors came for me, yet I watched them walk away with my auntie's daughters. My name is Chioma Miriam, and I am 25 years old. I chose to share my story today not because it is easy, but because someone out there might be walking through the same darkness I once walked through. And maybe, just maybe, my tears can give them strength to hold on. Lest I forget, get a tissue by your side because this story will break your heart before it heals it. I still remember that day. The 5th day of my 7th year on earth. My tiny hands held a flower as my father held mine. We were both in black. We had just come back from my mother's grave. 7 years gone, but the pain was still fresh. I didn't even know what it meant to lose a mother. All I knew was that every time we dropped flowers, my father's eyes turned red and wet. That evening, as soon as we stepped inside the house, he sank into the chair. Then suddenly, he slumped to the ground, wailing with a bottle of alcohol in his hand. My little heart froze. I ran to him, shook his arm. "Papa, Papa." But he didn't answer. Then the door flew open. It was Auntie Veronica. She barged in with anger written all over her face. Her voice was like thunder. "So this is what you've become. Drinking yourself to death while your daughter rots in misery." She didn't even look at me. She stood over my father, pointing, shouting, calling him useless, weak. Words I didn't understand then, but words that pierced like knives. I was still clutching to my father when she turned to me. Her eyes, they weren't soft, not even for a second. She just bent, grabbed my arm and said, "You are coming with me." And just like that, before I could even cry for my father to wake up, I was taken away. Taken to a house I would later call prison. When Auntie Veronica dragged me away that evening, I thought maybe I was going to find comfort. As we entered her compound, the first thing I saw were her 2 daughters Mia and Leah, twins. They were only 4, but the way they looked at me, it was not welcoming. One of them clutched her doll tighter, the other hid behind the wall and whispered, "Mama, who is she?" Auntie's voice was sharp. "This is Miriam. From today she will live with us. She will help in this house." Help. 7 years old. The twins didn't run to hug me. They didn't smile. Instead, one of them frowned and said, "So she will wash our plates." And the other giggled, "Good. Now we won't get to do it." Their laughter stung me more than a whip. Right there I felt it. My little heart told me, this place will not be home. Even the neighbors, who sat on low stools outside, stared at me with pity in their eyes. One old woman whispered to another, "That's the daughter of the late Magdalene. God help her in this woman's hand." I didn't understand everything they said, but I understood the look in their eyes. It was the same look people give to someone they already feel sorry for. That night, as I lay on a cold mat in the corner of the room, I hugged myself tight. I didn't need anyone to tell me. My life had just changed forever. And not for good. From the very first week in Auntie Veronica's house, I was no longer a child. I became her slave. Every morning before the twins even opened their eyes, she would wake me with the sharp edge of her voice. "You get up now. Fetch water before the sun rises, and stop sleeping like you have no problems to worry about. Sweep this compound. Not even your flirty footsteps should be visible. Wash those plates. Scrub the floor." Her daughters would sit on the bench, swinging their legs, eating roasted corn, while I bent my back over piles of dirty clothes. I washed till my fingers turned white, till my eyes burned from soap. I was only 7, yet I carried firewood heavier than my arms, balanced pots of water on my head, walked barefoot to the stream under the hot sun. If I spilled a drop, her cane would find my skin. Sometimes I would cry silently, asking myself, was I born only to suffer? The pain wasn't just the work. It was the words, the names she and her kids called me. Orphan girl, useless, burden, mistake. each one cut deeper than a whip. Slowly, I began to believe her. My voice disappeared. Even when I went to the stream, other girls would laugh at me. That's the slave from Auntie Vero's house. See how thin she is, see how rough her clothes are. I would hear them, but I couldn't talk back. My lips stayed shut, my eyes stayed down. I thought I didn't deserve to defend myself. That's how low I sank. My self-worth died before I even knew what it meant to have one. At night, when her daughters slept peacefully, I would sit outside alone, staring at the stars. I always wondered, did my mother see me from heaven? Did she know her only child was living like this? By the time I turned 17, nothing had changed in Auntie Veronica's house. I was still the servant, still the scapegoat, still the one who ate only after everyone else had eaten, sometimes only the crumbs. One night it was very late. The moon was high, the whole village quiet, and she called me. "Miriam, go and buy me groundnut oil. Now." I was afraid. My heart was beating. "Auntie, it's too late," I whispered. But before I could even finish, her slap landed on my cheek. "Shut your mouth and go," she barked. So I went. My legs were trembling as I walked through the lonely path to the shop. On my way back, carrying the oil in my hand, I heard footsteps behind me, then laughter, rough, ugly laughter. Before I could run, 4 boys came out from the shadows. They blocked my path. Their eyes were wild, their words filthy. They pushed me, grabbed me, tried to tear my skirt. I screamed until my voice cracked. I begged them, "Please, please leave me." Tears ran down my face, but they only laughed harder. It was only when a man carrying a lantern passed by on the road that the boys scattered into the bush like animals. I gathered my torn skirt with shaking hands, clutching the oil to my chest, and ran home, my body weak, my soul broken. When I burst into the compound, crying uncontrollably, I thought Auntie Veronica would hold me, comfort me. I thought she would say, "My child, thank God you are safe." Instead, she looked at me with disgust. "What is it?" she hissed. I knelt before her, sobbing. "Auntie, some boys, they wanted to. The words couldn't even leave my mouth. But before I could finish, she shouted, "Shut up, useless girl. Who would want to touch you? You think you are beautiful. Wench. Prostitute in the making." Her words cut deeper than those boys' hands. She went on, "Who knows? Maybe you even enjoyed it. Aren't you the reason your mother died?" "Yes, because what kind of child is born only to kill her own mother in childbirth? Useless. I should have never taken you in." Her daughters stood at the corner, giggling as she spat those words into my face. I wept until my chest hurt. I wanted the ground to open and swallow me. I ran outside into the dark yard. I sat on the bare ground, the cold sand soaking my wrapper, and I cried like I had never cried before. I lifted my face to the stars, whispering through my sobs, "Papa, why? Why did you leave me too?" I wept bitterly. "Papa, if only you were strong enough. If only you had fought for me, maybe Auntie Veronica would never have stepped into our house. Maybe she would not have stolen everything you owned. Maybe I would not be here today, treated like a stranger in my own bloodline." I pressed my palms against my chest, as if trying to hold my heart together before it shattered completely. That was the night I began to understand. I was no longer anyone's daughter, no longer anyone's child. I was just Miriam alone. By the time I turned 22, men began to notice me. Farmers would stop me on the road to the stream, smiling, asking if they could speak to me. Some even came to our house with cola nut, asking for my hand. But each time Auntie Veronica would laugh. She would say, "That one, she has nothing. She's nothing. Why not look at my daughters instead?" And they listened. The first man who came for me, he married Mia. The second, he married the Lia. Both left with joy while I was left with pain. I watched as they wore the clothes, the rings, the smiles that were meant for me. And I stayed back with the hoe, with the farm, with the stream. Auntie gave me targets. How many ridges to finish, how many heaps to make. If I failed, I did not eat. I was 22, but inside I was nothing more than a servant. My beauty meant nothing. My youth meant nothing. My life was not mine. One evening, as I was coming back from the farm with firewood on my head, I saw a crowd gathered in the square. Out of curiosity, I asked someone what was happening. They told me some white men had come. They were giving out seeds to young women, anyone from 18 and above. The seed was to be nurtured. If it grew well, there would be a great reward, bigger than anything we had ever seen. The moment I heard that, my heart jumped. I had been farming since I was 7. I had grown yam, cassava, and beans. I knew how to make life come out of the soil. So I said to myself, if I can farm for others, why can't I nurture my own seed? I went straight and registered. I wrote my name, gave my household number, and collected my seed. I felt, maybe for the first time, that something good might finally come to me. But on my way home, still carrying the firewood, I met Auntie Veronica and her 2 daughters heading to the square. They didn't say a word to me. I just walked past quietly. Later I heard the shouting. When they got there, they discovered someone from our house had already registered. Only 2 were allowed per household. And when they checked the list, they saw my name. When they came back, the whole house was fire. They insulted me, called me useless, cursed me. Auntie even tried to erase my name, but they told her it was not possible. In the end, it was only Mia that managed to register. Auntie quickly collected her daughter's seed and said she would nurse it herself. Me. I was left with mine. One small seed, one small hope. I held it like it was my life. And I began to nurse it. I began to nurse my seed with all the care I had. Morning, night, I watered it, prayed over it. I hoped it would be my way out, my escape. The first week passed. Nothing. No sign of life. Even Auntie's daughter's seed wasn't growing. Second week came, Auntie's daughter's seed began to push out a small green, but mine was still the same, cold and silent in the soil. Auntie's daughter's seed continued to grow taller and stronger. By the third week I was broken inside. I tried everything I knew. The same hands that had farmed since I was 7, the same sweat that had grown ridges upon ridges. Still my seed refused. Meanwhile, Auntie's daughter's seed was flourishing. When the final week came, my ground was still bare. I cried into the soil, begging it to give me just one leaf, one sign. But nothing came. The D-Day arrived. The whole village gathered at the square. Auntie's daughter went with pride, her seed tall and beautiful in her hands. They walked with heads high. Me. I sat in the compound crying. That seed was supposed to be my hope. If it had grown, I could win the reward, leave this house, start a life far away from Auntie. But I had nothing to show. Nothing. Still I said to myself, let me go. Even if they don't believe me, let me return their seed and tell them I tried. When I got to the square, my shame doubled. The girls were laughing. Some pointed at me, whispering, look at her, the almighty farmer girl, yet she cannot grow one small seed. A woman shouted from the crowd, Vero, are you going to allow this servant girl of yours to disgrace your family? She has nothing to show. Auntie Vero turned to the woman and said, of course not. She will leave this place at once. Then she came and drove me away from the line. I turned back, tears burning my eyes, when a man's voice rose gently from behind. No, don't judge her. Everyone has the right to return their seed, whether it grows or not. Let her stand. I gathered the little strength left in me and returned to the line. One by one, the girls submitted their seeds and their names were taken. When it was my turn, I held my empty pot with shaking hands. I gave it to them. They wrote down my name, and I went to sit back quietly in the crowd. As I sat back in the crowd, one of the white men stood up. He cleared his throat, his voice deep and heavy. He first thanked everyone who had come, then he praised those whose seeds had grown, commending their hard work. The crowd clapped. My heart sank deeper. Then he paused. Silence filled the square. Slowly he lifted up a pot. My pot, the one that carried a dead seed. He raised it high and said, Who owns this seed? The whole crowd turned to look at me. I felt the stares, I heard the whispers, the snickers, the laughter behind me. They cleared the way, pointing, mocking. My legs shook, but I walked forward. I raised my hand, trying to say, "It is mine," but my lips were shaking beyond control. He looked at me for a long moment, then cleared his throat again. "What happened to your seed? How did you nurture it? How come it didn't grow?" So many questions. I began with a shaky voice by telling him the entire process, but yet it refused to grow. After a brief silence, he looked at me and said, "Thank you," softly. "Thank you for nurturing your seed." The crowd roared with confusion. People shouted. People began to ask one another what was happening. But her seed never grew. A woman shouted from the crowd. The man raised his hand for silence. Yes, her seed never grew, because it was never meant to. All the seeds we gave out were boiled. They were dead. They could never grow. Gasps filled the square. He asked his team to bring the leftover bucket of seeds, and when they poured them out, not a single seed had sprouted. "Every seed was dead," he said firmly. "But many of you threw yours away and planted fresh ones. You cheated." "She did not. She is the only honest one among you." At that moment, the ground swallowed every laugh, every insult I had endured. Faces that mocked me now bowed their heads in shame. Even Auntie Veronica could not lift her eyes. The man took my hand and raised it up. "This lady is the only honest person here," he declared, "and that has made her worthy." That day my life changed. The seed of honesty my mother left on my tiny palm before taking her last breath finally germinated. I was awarded a contract and taken into a great agricultural firm. I became the head, the one people called Madam. I built a company that produced and packaged food across the countries. Found love. I married. God blessed me with 2 children of my own. For the first time in my life I tasted peace. Years later I returned home. Auntie Veronica was no longer the proud, strong woman I knew. I found her weak, sick, lying in poverty. She looked at me with eyes full of regret. And I, the girl she once called useless, whose kids called orphan girl, bent down and lifted her up. I took her to the hospital. I paid her bills. Not because she deserved it, but because I refused to be like her. I paid her with kindness. That was my victory. My story is proof that honesty, patience, and a kind heart will always win in the end. Evil may shine for a moment, but truth lasts forever. And to every child listening to me, never let people's words define you. Even if they call you useless, even if they mock your pain, hold on. God sees. God remembers. And one day your tears will become your testimony. But before I end, I must pray. May God keep our mothers alive. May they never die and leave their children under the care of another person. May God give them strength to raise their children with love. And may no child ever suffer the way I did. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like and engage under the comment section with a word of affirmation to the prayer that you will always be present in your children's life.